Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Paton Brand's Flourishing Women's Edition. Nandi Jiyane, and today I have the pleasure and the honor of being your host. Before I introduce our guest, I would like to urge you all to stick until the very end because we have fantastic prizes up for grabs. We've got a book by Tembi called Strike a Rock, and also we'll be giving away steers vouchers courtesy of InspectaCar. Now, today is all about women in male-dominated industries challenging the status quo. It's about women who really breaking through glass ceilings. And our guest needs no introduction, actually. She's very dynamic in every sense of the word. And she is a trailblazer. She's a community builder. She's a philanthropist, a mentor, a leader. Please help me welcome the CEO of InspectaCar, Pertunia Sibanyoni. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for the opportunity to engage with you. You know, after reading your profile, I thought to myself, do I really have the same 24 hours as you do? Because wow, you have so many accolades, and I think our guests need to know what you have to. I'm asking Pertunia to give us the pleasure of maybe briefly introducing yourself and taking us through your journey, your childhood, as well as your journey into being the InspectaCar CEO.
Thank you, Nandi, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. So I was born and bred in the township in Linville, Ackerville in Witbank, grew up in Ackerville. My dad was a mechanic and a driver, and his last job before he retired was a fleet operations manager at Highfield Steel. So from there, he started his own business, taxis, buses, and trucks. And then my mom was a domestic worker. And then she started selling, back then it was called soft goods, amastilul. But me, I was young at the time, so I didn't have to go around easily selling steel wool. And then she later on had her own clothing line business, selling to also the mining community. In fact, she was the only person that never judged me by the amount of pair of shoes that I have. It was like, yeah, this one's my favorite. Let's buy it. And you know, growing up being daddy's girl allowed me to be curious but have this eager to succeed mantra, make much bolder decision because we had a very strong bond. And what I liked about my dad, you know, he not only taught me some values, but he led by examples in terms of respect against all odds and you know, being yourself and aiming to succeed in that space. And you know, back in 1992, we were the first Black people to actually enroll to a multiracial school. So we had to even write a test to be accepted back then in 1992 at Greendale High School. And we made it, we went through, you know, so it was quite an interesting one at the time. And then just also want to touch on where my career started. So I started back in 2004 at Shell. I was the first Black African female area manager. And then just after I started, there was an accreditation program for after 6 months called Flying Solo. And after that, I was afforded the opportunity to be in the Shell graduate program. And that program allowed me to go to the Netherlands, The Hague, and meet Shell graduates from across the globe, which was quite an honor for me. And at the time, I also had an opportunity to work for a global lubricants business, which is not local. And I was on the top 3, in fact, number 3 on the top 19 sales manager league tables. I was looking after South Africa at the time, and Swaziland still belonged there. So it was quite an honor for me to get such an accolade. And I love everything about sports cars and about cars. I mean, it's something that I take from my dad. We shared that thrill. And at Shell, with the love of Ferrari, I had the honor to meet Michael Schumacher, Mike
Oh,
Jimmy,
wow.
and Felipe Massa. So yeah, it was quite an honor. And then my last role at Shell was Retail Transformation Manager, where I drafted the policy for transformation and also concluded the cooperation agreement with National Fund, Empowerment Fund, to fund Black females to own their own service stations. So that's very proud for me that I've influenced women to own their service stations, and not just service stations, like big ones. I'm talking ultra cities, etc.
Yes.
So that was quite, I think, an achievement from my end. And yeah, I spent 12 years at Shell, and then I took a year's sabbatical. I just thought, you know what, I need a break, I need a change in environment, change in a different industry. And for me, I'm very grateful for that decision that I made, because it actually allowed me to spend 2 weeks in Thailand with my parents. It was their first trip outside of the country. And because my dad passed away a few months after that, so it was quite a good memory for me to be able to spend time with my parents overseas. And then after that year, I was then headhunted to start at West Bank to head up the InspectaCar as the used car franchise owned by West Bank. And yeah, here we are today. You know, being a female in a male-dominated environment is about also making sure that you break the stereotypes. So it means you have to work twice as hard as your male counterparts. So for me, it has been my competence has helped me build my confidence. I really take seriously what I do, and making sure that I know my craft. And then I think the second bit is around also making sure that you juggle a work-life balance as well. And, you know, I've played netball for over 20 years now, played league at Shell, started a league at West Bank about 2 years ago. I believe that, you know, a healthy body equates to a healthy mind. You know, you need that your mental state needs to be good all the time. I also do professional Latin dancing, and that's thanks to my son, AK. AK is my only child. He's 10 years old. He's a current SA hip hop champ for Tiny Tots. He's represented South Africa in Turkey. Yeah, he does so many things. He plays soccer. He does modeling. You name it. But also important that he understands that education is important. So he also does very well at school. I mean, the last term, he got a top 10 academic for the term one at school. So you making sure that he's got a quite balanced life. Because can you imagine at such an early age, you've traveled abroad, you are called the king of hip hop, you know, so it can really.
So good, and it
Yeah.
opens your eyes. I mean, I can, you know, one of the things that I've actually learned, because I've had an opportunity at a very young age to travel, and the amount of exposure and the experience, you know, my mom always says that they can take everything away from you, but they can't take what you saw with your eyes. They can't take the experience. So I know very well that experience and how important it is to you. But I think there's a lot of points of conversations that we can start off from your life, but also, whilst we're on the topic of being in a male-dominated industry and you as a leader of InspectaCar, as CEO, we've obviously the past couple of months, or should I say 2 years, we have gone through a pandemic, and there's been so many distractions to our society, to our economy, and for many leaders, 2020 was certainly one of the most challenging years, and in their professional careers. And what are some of the leadership lessons that you think you have taken on from 2020, which you're adopting and will be adopting for the future?
I would think definitely it has to be having agile and resilient leadership. You know, the start of the lockdown, there was a lot of uncertainty, fear of the unknown. So one as a leader had to make quick decisions with very limited information. And also importantly, you know, you have to go with your gut feel as well. So I also just had to inspire our dealers to say, you know what, the challenge we've been faced with, we now have to enhance our digital presence, because already we knew that consumer buyer behavior has changed. They go to the dealer online first before they go to the dealership. So I think that's the one, being agile and resilient. I think the second one is around empathy. People went through the most. We lost our loved ones. Working from home can be taxing emotionally, and that. So as a leader, it was quite important that you demonstrate empathy for your team and those around you. You check in and just say, how are you guys doing? Because remember, we used to see each other all the time, but now we see each other, through the screens. So it was quite important for us, just to care. Life is too short. So you have to show that empathy in that you care with all the key stakeholders that you work around with. So those are the two lessons for me that I've learned.
I'm glad that you touch on empathy, because a lot of the leadership that we see now requires people to be very compassionate because of what we've gone through. What do you think? And also, we have seen that women have come out on top, leading their countries, leading their organizations, especially under COVID-19 and the pandemic. They've come out on top in terms of leadership qualities that they possess. What do you think, though? Because we are sitting at a place where you see very few females taking up space in positions of authority. What do you think is a barrier that is actually holding up women to advance into those leadership positions?
So it's very easy to acknowledge diversity. It's easy to see how a person is different from you. Our challenge is the inclusion, or to provide an environment that acknowledges women and provides them with equal opportunities. That's the two. And I think, we need to learn from some of organizations that have done this, because you can flourish as a woman, but when you are in an environment that doesn't promote that, you will not strive. And I think I can give kudos to my employer, WesBank, through the leadership levels in terms of them facilitating a resilient work-life balance culture that acknowledges women and gives them an equal opportunity and recognizes them as leaders. I mean, for the past 4 years, WesBank has been certified as the top top employer, and this is because of their people strategy, their diversity inclusion programs, as well as employee wellness. Times are hard. So if your employer does not provide you with the tools like through iCares and all of those things and recognition, you won't survive. So it's both about women can show up, but they need to be in an environment that facilitates acknowledging women and empowering them to be leaders.
Definitely. And one of the key elements also to empower women and actually them taking up space in leadership positions, I find, is that getting the right mentorship, which is something that I know that you are quite familiar with and you encourage in your own capacity. So you've had an opportunity to help other people develop their careers through mentorship. Why do you think mentorship is important in career development? And what is the one thing that you feel like you have learned through mentoring someone? Because when you mentor someone, when you're teaching someone, you're learning something. What has that experience taught you? And why is it also important to have a mentor if you want to develop in your career?
So there's a saying by Jim Rohn that says that, my mentor said, let's go do it, not you go do it. How powerful when someone says, let us go and do it. So mentorship is about being selfless as a leader. It's not about you, it's about the mentee. But also, obviously, as a mentee, you need to show up and also get around what your career developments are. So mentorship, I believe, is important. One, it takes you out of your comfort zone and also helps you accelerate and fast track your personal development, because you've got someone, Nandi will say, so Pertunia, you said you want to develop your digital marketing skills and this is what you want to do to maintain that. you're definitely going to ask me down the line whether I've done that, because also being a mentor is about having that authentic drive to see someone else succeed, hence the selfless part. And I was very fortunate when I started at InspectaCar. Tony Frost, who's a leadership and strategy guru, offered to mentor me on a pro bono basis. And what I really liked about Tony, the first time we met, he said to me he doesn't want to mentor me as a CEO of InspectaCar, but also as a person that plays multiple roles in society, as a leader, as a mother, as a sibling, as a partner, etc. And also, secondly, he was able to unlock his networks in the automotive industry. Because I was new, he was able to introduce me to people that help shape my career as well. So that's why I believe mentorship is important. It's about, us holding the hand out to someone that has been there, has done well, and showing you the ropes to make it much easier for you to be able to fare better, not just only for career development, but also from a personal development perspective as well.
I love that. I love that, because I think one of the things that I love and I've seen you doing is that, and what you're saying is that, once you get into those positions, yes, you do have the seat, but what are you doing with that seat? How are you giving back? It's about being selfless. And I think it's very important. And I find that also the networking part, I mean, you spoke a little bit about Tony, that he opened many doors for you. So the networking part and making sure that you're showing up as your true, authentic self, that people actually take you as who you are. I want to understand, and maybe this is also quite a controversial topic, especially in a male-dominated industry. You've had to show up as yourself, and from the way I see you, you are very bright. You are, for me, your hair stands out, and especially if you're in corporate, I think people would be like, okay, your hair's pink. Why? And how do you then manage that, just being able to be a CEO of InspectaCar, but still show up in pink hair and owning it and still being authentic? Have you ever received any remarks towards the way you dress or the way you look, especially in the automotive industry?
So interesting, the color of the hair is always such a conversation starter, because I always had blue hair. I've recently changed to red. And I think, my competence and what I do has got nothing to do with the color of my hair. When I show up in that environment, I maintain that professionalism and engage at the level one would expect a CEO to engage in. When you are a woman, you need to recognize, what role that you play and how you show up. I once attended a conference where a lady from the UN Women was talking, and she mentioned something very interesting. She said, "Are you cleavage or are you clever?" And we all looked at each other and didn't know what she was meaning. She said, as women, we talk about we are not being recognized, all of that. But have we taken a step back and also looked at how do we show up in spaces where we want to dominate, not because we're women, but because of we've got the competency and the professionalism to be able to do it. So for my end, I maintain, different roles. I mean, I'm a Latin dancer. I can't show up at work wearing something as revealing as going to a dance competition. I think for me, that's how you respect yourself. That's how other people will take of you. And I think it hasn't been, an issue of, because you've got red or blue hair, we can't take you seriously. In fact, sometimes some of my dealers, they joke and say, oh, let's see what color she comes with, at this time around. So it's really about how you carry it and show up. And you must remember, my son is a hip hop, champion. So when I woke up there as a hip hop mommy, I represent, as much as my sneaker game needs to be on point when I go to dance competitions with him. I always say, if there's one thing that I could take from him, is this exorbitant confidence that he has before he goes to a competition. Me, I'm so nervous. He just walks in. He feeds off from the crowd. He does what he wants to do. I always laugh sometimes. You expect judges to be writing down. Instead, they take out their phones and video him. So, like, okay, that's interesting. So I think it's really, about. In fact, one woman asked me, "So, what kind of a CEO are you with blue hair?" And I was like, this is a very same challenge that it's said that at times, as women, we don't have the sisterhood to support each other. You know, for me, I was very disappointed to get that kind of a question from another woman. And also, a lot of women suffer from this imposter syndrome.
Yes.
You know you've got what it takes, but when you get home, you doubt yourself and say, "Oh, did I say the right things?" and whatever. You know what I mean? So we need to stop that imposter syndrome and really recognize that as women, we bring in quite a lot onto the plate. And I also believe we've got special skills that, when you compare to men, we are able to fare better. I mean, if you look at female entrepreneurs, they do so well compared to the same male counterparts where they are given an opportunity, if I may add. So we need to just own it and show up as best as, how you want to reflect out there in the public.
I love that. I want to speak about your child, actually, your 10-year-old AK. He's obviously just as dynamic as you, and definitely a go-getter because he's achieved so much at such a young age. And you touched on the skills or the trait that he has that you really look at you and like, wow, I wish I had some of that. What do you think are some of the key traits you believe are important for parents to teach their kids so that they can actually unlock their full potential? Because here we are, you've got your 10-year-old who's been able to do this and that and go into the music or entertainment, hip hop industry. And he has achieved so much. What do you think are the traits that parents should be teaching so that they can unlock their children for the future? But also, what kind of traits and skills these children need so that they can positively contribute to the economy and contribute to gender equality and contribute to the growth of our continent as a whole?
So for me, it has to be how I was raised. I mean, I was raised by a strong set of values, which were not taught to me, but were demonstrated, led by example. The first one would be respect. Respect really goes a long way, which is what I teach my son is about respect. And the other one is really believing in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one is going to. And, that's why for me, I supported my son's dancing journey. He started at a very early age when he's about 4, to recognize that this is outside of education. So I have to support him, but also give him that, you also need to have education. It's important to be educated in life and also to be humble. You can imagine that if I don't teach him now at a young age, he can turn out to be this pompous hip hop dancer and forget the values of where he comes from. And also acknowledge where he comes from. So my son speaks Zulu proper, and when he speaks to elders, he's respectful, he recognizes. So it's important to teach those values as well. And also how to treat women. I always tell him, well, he's a mama's baby anyway, that, women are to be treated like queens. You don't hit a woman, you don't speak harsh to a woman because that's damaging emotionally. Even if you don't hit them but you speak, bad towards them, it's not good. So those things at an early age, I talk to him about it in such a way that when he goes out there and he observes something, he comes back and tells me, says, "Hey, mom, this is what has happened," to show that he understands with that. And the good thing about him as well, at this early age, he's quite entrepreneurial. So he gets quite a lot of gigs, either doing a Soweto Kids Festival, being the featured dancer. Recently, he was featured on the Soda Block podcast to advise other kids how was lockdown and how did they make good of it, and I had him on the phone telling his friend that he's a dog without a leash. you know and he gifted me as his mother as well. I mean, we went shopping, but the nice thing, they asked him, so what are you going to do with all this money you're getting? He said, no, I want to pay for my dance lesson so that I can be a better dancer, and then the rest, he says, no, I want to buy clothes so that I can look swaggy. So already, he's someone who's thinking that, okay, the clothes are short-lived, but they may also contribute towards my craft as well.
I love that. As you were talking about the fact that he thought about you, and you somehow are also part of his thoughts when he gets this money. My first thought was like, how parents in Zulu city, abazali bathi ukuzala ukuze lula. And
yes.
You know what? I believe in that. And honestly, I love seeing my parents proud and just going home and just money as in Milo, buying groceries. And you're absolutely right. It's all about the values that you taught when you're still young. It's all about how you brought up, what kind of that you. I love that he is already thinking about the future and saving and thinking about what he wants to have in the future, but also giving back to his family and, remembering you as Umawak. I want to also understand, especially now because it's Women's Month, right? And we celebrate women and commemorate women a lot. Do you feel that the welfare and emotional well-being of boy children is as emphasized as girl children? Because we have a lot of women empowerment, girl empowerment programs and initiatives, but it's very rare that we and a lot of organizations and people are not really recognizing the welfare of young boys. Do you think that it's not as emphasized as the girl, and how should that be dealt with, especially because you're a mother to a boy child? How important is their welfare?
No, I think we focus a lot on the girls, which is okay because also they face quite a lot. I mean, gender-based violence. I mean, through the AkhuPeliza Foundation, working with kids from child-headed families, they experience a lot. Imagine that you have to miss school for 3 days because you don't have sanitary towels, but we also need to focus on the boys as well. And I'm glad, my franchise ops manager, Zwandile, they've got what they call brotherhood. And at one point when I couldn't step in Soweto giving this motivational talk, they went through and focused on the boys. So I would think it's good to see more organizations like that, that focuses on the boys as well, because especially maybe the boys that are raised by single mothers, because maybe they don't have a father figure to refer to, or unfortunately they've been exposed to a bad kind of image of a father figure. So they need to be taught that, what, you don't have to relive your past. The future is bright. This is what you need to focus on to be a gentleman, and these are the things that you need to be doing. I mean, something as simple as, sometimes, men find it challenging to accept independent women. Why do you have to be threatened? Whereas you can support. There's many couples that thrive very well, where you find the woman is doing much better than the men, and that. So things like that, as we may take it very lightly, but it's something that needs to be addressed as such.
You mentioned that you have a foundation. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your the foundation and what it's about and what you actually do, the purpose of the foundation?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've always wanted to have one because when I grew up at church, my mom used to belong to what they call ikomiti lesihe, basically, helping, others that can't for themselves. So she used to take me with, and she did this all also out of her own pocket, where people are sick, take them groceries, where maybe someone has passed on, and then bring those things for teas and that. So at an early age, then she showed me that, you know what, you need to help others. And one thing that I observed about her, I mean, we'll go around in all these homes. She will never leave without saying a prayer for them, which, was quite, important and interesting. And then, one year I said, you know what, I need to spend my birthday differently. So at that time, I had a friend of mine. She introduced me to the NGO in Soweto and in Piri, and said, they work with child-headed families. And then it so happened that one Wednesday when we went there was some grannies as well that were just coming out there, just to be together. So it started from sharing a birthday cake and some food with them, with some uniforms. I mean, I looked at some of those kids in the middle of winter wearing torn tracksuits. So I engaged with a local lady that makes the school's tracksuits, started buying them. So we started with like 10. The following year was 30. Then it was school shoes. And so it grew. So if you are someone I know that wants to buy me a present, guess what? You can donate school shoes. And then later on, I met a group of youngsters called Visionary Youth. Then we started adding the matric students, the sanitary towels, and the matric dance dresses. I think in the last one we did, I gave 8 of my own, made dresses to them as well. And then, so for you to donate a dress, you must also donate at least a minimum of 3 sanitary towels pack. And then we also, again, I started being asked these questions. You look so young, and, you CEO and all of that. And then they started asking me to do a motivational talk with, the matric students. And so it goes. And it's so amazing, the things that they ask you. Some of them are fearing going to university because now they're going to be on their own. And when I tell them, I was 17 years when my parents dropped me off at university, So, telling them about my experience, how, yes, when you're away from home, you get exposed to things of, maybe doing wrong things. But you need to remember why you're there. You are there to get an education, something that's going to influence your future. And also, some other kids, maybe their parents had to make sacrifices for them to be there. So don't waste that. You know what I mean? And also the fact that people always think because I come from this kind of background, I won't be able to go far in life. And I tell them and I say, you know what, if you are good and you study, there's bursaries that get awarded. I know some people that are successful in life because of bursaries, NSFAS, and all of that, because you only start paying it once you start working. So it's important to for them to see that, you know what, here's someone that was born and grew up in a township. She's doing so many things with her life, so it can be done, so that they don't make reference to, people overseas or wherever, and see someone here locally that comes to the township and talk to them as well, building them that confidence. It was so touching for me when I did one of the talks. When I was done, the girl that was sitting in front, she started crying. And I was like, yo, what happened? And, engaging her, she was like, she's staying alone. She's 18. Her parents are in Northwest. So, only time she gets to really spend time with her mom is in December. So she said when she looked at me, I just reminded her of the gap she has not having a mother around. And since then, me and her keep very close. Invite her, we go to church and then go out and have lunch. Anytime she's got an issue, she can WhatsApp me, call me. I'm playing that motherhood role, even though I don't think, I'm sure I'm maybe much younger than a mom. But, it's say opening up your time and be selfless to help others. It can be something as simple as, I'm not sure what subjects I need to choose for my first year. just to spark that conversation of thinking, okay, have you thought about what career do you want to be in? Okay, this is what I want to do. Because it's as simple as that, that because he doesn't have someone to talk to. You've been there. I mean, I studied Bachelor of Science, major in psychology and physiology. Yeah, look where I am right now. Taken a different 360 turn, went into business management and marketing, and it's okay. I've learned one valuable lesson from Gugu Kazi. She's an international director on talent development. She says, the 3 strategies of developing your own human capital is 1, it's a journey, it never stops. The second one, it's about being deliberate on the things that you need to do. So for me, it was deliberate for me to start studying business management and marketing because I thought to myself, this is what now I want to do. And the third one, it's about networks. And networks are a two-way street. You need to be a visible leader where you've got expertise and show up, but also at the same time, you need to upskill yourself and form networks that are critical as such. And speaking about networks, a group of us 6 ladies last year in July, in the middle of lockdown, we started Women in Automotive. And so this is an organization that is the voice of women in automotive, to also, bridge the gaps of, what challenges are women facing in this industry. And we also mentor quite a number of young women that are in the industry. I think I've already mentored about 3 already since last year. And also, when people think, you would know this, when they think automotive, they think manufacturing. But there's also the retail part of it, that there's so much to automotive than just the manufacturing part of it. So it's also to make it attractive for the people that are not in automotive to say, here are these women, they are flourishing, this is what they've done, etc. So that's why we've created that for the women out there to be able to see, we are here to help. It's about lifting others as you rise as well. Don't rise on your own. Gets very lonely at the top, by the way. So lift others as you rise as well.
I love that. Where can women, especially women in the automotive industry, you have women in automotive, where can they find this platform? Is it a platform? How can they be part of that journey and be part of that conversation?
So we've got a LinkedIn page. It's called Women in Autos. You can just click on the link and that's how easily you join. And then what we also do, because the women that are there, we've got some from World, Ford, Nissan, etc. We always ensure that with our colleagues as well, we tell them about this platform. And then, in fact, on Friday, we are having a webinar for Women in Auto, which is sponsored by Gumtree. And yeah, for my sins, I'm the keynote speaker for that session. I'm going to be talking about climbing the corporate ladder in heels.
Oh, yes.
And we're going to be talking about mentoring, but also very important, we are bringing in a male from the automotive industry that's going to talk about why is it important to have a woman in the automotive industry. And I think also the one thing we need to demystify, you don't have to be like me and love cars to be in the motor industry. I was daddy's little girl and, I grew up with cars all my life. You don't have to be. I mean, the one time we had a woman in transport webinar, and I laughed. McFarland introduced me. He said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a psychologist on the stage, when he introduced me. And the question that I was asked to answer, what do you need to study to be in the automotive industry? I was like, okay, you're asking someone who studied psychology and now, so it doesn't have to be your formal training. As long as you have a skill and a competency, if you want to be in marketing, that's where then your focus of studying should be. If it's sales and operations, if you've demonstrated having been selling in the past, that's where you should be. It doesn't really matter what formal qualification you have. I mean, those are good for people like chartered accountants, lawyers, etc. But if you want to do any other roles in the industry, you don't have to have a formal qualification, but you need to make sure that your skill set is suitable for you to take up that role.
Before we move on, I just want to encourage everyone to ask questions on the question bar. For if you have any questions for Pertunia. Pertunia, I want to actually go back. You touched a lot on your childhood as well as your father and how you grew up, that your father was actually a mechanic. And that also influenced the fact that you are now in the automotive industry. How important was that relationship with your father influencing where you are for you to actually get into the automotive industry?
Yeah, so Nandi, it's actually quite an interesting one because my father allowed me to be bolder and dream big, and he was always supportive, and he was my cheerleader, to be quite honest. And I've always had this conversation with him, and I say, I want to be on that CEO under 40s list as well. And it's so unfortunate. I spoke earlier about the last holiday that we had with my parents, in that, when I was going through the recruitment from being the CEO of InspectaCar, my dad was involved in a car accident. At the time, I was in Durban attending a friend's wedding when it happened. So I could only come back on Monday. And then I think I signed my offer on the Thursday, and, he was in hospital. He couldn't speak. And I told him, but he could hear what I was saying. And he gave me, like a sharp thumbs up. So, and then on the Monday, it was the 6th of February, I joined West Bank. Excuse me for a sec, just need to kill this. I joined West Bank, and then 2 days later, on the 8th of February, my father unfortunately passed away. So, I was in a new environment with people I don't know. So I had to go through the trauma of losing a father and starting a new job at the same time. And for about a year, I was in denial. I was angry. And most certainly, I was very depressed, because I've now lost this person that has always been my mentor. I mean, even at the time, I didn't know about mentorship. But now that I reflect back, he has always been my mentor. And came 8th of February now, 2018, the light bulb went on. I realized that my father's gone. I've been in denial. And, I had to really start thinking about how am I going to cope. And one day I had a meeting with Rinas Leroux. He saw my WhatsApp profile pic. It's got both my mom and dad, because sadly as well, my mom passed away about a year after that. And he said to me, I hope I'm not offending you. And he gave me a book. It's called Sculpted by Grief. It's a very easy read. I think it took me about 2 days to read the book. And, I got to understand that there's 5 stages of grieving. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be in denial, because I went through so many things. And sometimes I would think, since I've gotten this job, I would have celebrated it with my dad, but he's not here. And start questioning, did I make the right decision? You know what I mean? But then one thing that I learned was about triggers, to basically say, when Father's Day is coming up, think of the great memories that you have with him. And also I started writing a journal, which helped me quite a lot. And also, around meditation as well. Now I am much better prepared when those triggers happen. I do take time off around the 8th of February because something also interesting happened to me thanks to my employer, West Bank, I got to tick one of my bucket list and study at Gibbs. On the 8th of February, I had to go write an exam. And, the lady from HR was so supportive and said, look, maybe just sit this one out and you try it some other time. And I said, no. Then, by the time everyone graduates, maybe I can't. No, I want to go write. And, it was a sad day for me that moment. I reflected. But, I went to write the exam, and the exam was about change management. You had to read a case study. And the case study was about how taxi owners adapted to the introduction of BRT. What have they done? What could they have done very well? I was like, this cannot be happening. My dad was a taxi owner. It was like, I'm cheating type of thing. And be that as it may, I got a distinction for that exam. So, such things, I then start to embrace them and say, you know what, he's there, he's my guardian angel. When I also reflect about my mom as well, I think the two of them, the entrepreneurial flair they had in each other, is the two lovebirds and I was the one that had to write my dad's obituary. And, some of them said it's too long, but I wrote it from the heart, how I know my dad and what he has done. And interestingly, at his memorial service as well, there was people that came from all over. In the taxi industry, he was seen as a leader, someone that was a peacemaker, someone that brought in, words of wisdom. The taxi industry, how hectic it can get, but he was well known. And one day, one of my dealers asked me, he's from Mpumalanga, and said, are you Ruben Sibanyoni's daughter? I said, yes. He says, oh, I know your father very well. He used to buy buses from me, from Volvo and Nissan. What a great man. He was, at the time, he was a black male entering a predominantly white-dominated industry in the mines as well. So, yeah, look, I miss him a lot every day. But yeah, I guess, with time, it will get better. But I'm very grateful of the learnings that he taught. And I would love to live his legacy so that, he could be proud of me one day. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your story. It also teaches everyone there who's dealing with grief and loss, which, by the way, they need to go get that book if they need support or need. They definitely. What's the name of the book again?
Sculpted by Grief.
Sculpted by Grief. They need to get that book.
And the author is Rinus Leroux.
Rinus Leroux. Definitely get that book. Thank you for teaching us the spirit of resilience. I think that's what comes out from this, that you've lost both your parents, but you've still managed to, carry on with your life and live authentically and really show up fully. And I think that for people who are grieving and who are going through loss, sometimes it looks like it's not going to end or this is the end of the world. I think you're a great example that, you need to be resilient and you will be okay. So there's a couple of questions from people who are watching. There's a question here that says, what has been your biggest challenge in your career and how did you overcome it?
I think is breaking that stereotype of being taken seriously as a female. There was once asked the question, what do I know about selling cars, as an example? You know what I mean? So I think that's been the biggest challenge for me is that as women, we don't get taken seriously. And also, when you are being firm, then you are arrogant. But if a same male counterpart addresses the same story, it's okay. So for me, around overcoming it, it's people respect you when they know that you know what you are doing. Even if they try and shake you and put you in the deep end, whatever the case is. I said it earlier, competence builds confidence. If you know your craft, trust me, no one can touch you. So for me, it's something that has helped me overcome. And I also don't want to downplay the power of mentoring. Tony has played a significant role in my life. Sometimes he has, told me something and said, yeah, what do you expect? To think they'll be happy that you are there coming up with this thing, young, black, female, So what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? And then I just say, you know what? This is what I want to do. So interesting, you must know the game, but don't play it. I think that's where women fall short. They want to play the game. Don't play it. Know it's there. Know when it's time for you to act, and also strike a balance of being neither too cozy nor too hostile. You need to strike that balance, and also sometimes they say women are dramatic and whatnot. I think it's also something I take after from my father. He was a cool and calm, collected person. My mother also used to say, speak soft but strong. So if you are this person that yada yada, you make a lot of noise, what they say about the empty vessel that makes the most noise. People tend to not listen to you. You're not making any sense. But if you are calm about it, you remain resilient, you say your point, it's done. And people forget what you said to them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Yeah.
Amazing points. Thank you for that. Last question here. We say they're asking, what is your next goal? What is for both your professional and your personal journey?
I think it's one we definitely add a lot of value from. And talking about it's a journey. I think one of the highlights of my career this year in March is being appointed as the chairperson of the Franchise Association. I've got 17 years experience in franchising. So for me, it's quite an honor to be entrusted to lead this auspicious organization, that was formed the year I was born. So yeah, you always need to continuously have those, but don't stop. I still have got a lot of more years to go. And yeah, and I think it also allows me to think of entrepreneurship as well.
Definitely. So we've got a few minutes left. I want to play a game, but before we play a game, I just wanted to remind the viewers that we have this book up for grabs. And I'm going to ask a question that pertains to some of what we've actually spoken about, and actually Pertunia herself. And also do be reminded that we are giving away 10 Steers vouchers courtesy of InspectaCar. So the question I want to ask is, what is the name of Pertunia Sibanyoni's foundation? If you can answer that correctly, and the first person to answer it correctly will receive this book. You will receive a DM, and the 10 viewers that engage the most will also be selected and DM'd for their Steers vouchers. So we've got a couple of minutes left. I want to play a game with you. We have to do this. We have to do this in a minute. So,
okay.
You need to think fast. Quick question. It's a quick question, quick answers.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to put a time here.
Okay.
All right, great. First question, describe yourself in 3 words.
Resilient, dynamic, inspirational.
Great. If you had to work but you didn't need the money, what job would you do and why?
Transformation, because I'm passionate about entrepreneurship.
Awesome. What is the funniest thing that happened to you recently?
It will have to be nanny drama. I have had serious nanny drama to my rose gold kettle being scrubbed off. Yeah, nanny drama.
At least you get to laugh about it, right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Since we're also in the automotive industry, what is your favorite car brand and why do you think it's the best?
Mercedes-Benz all the way, AMG.
Ooh! Exactly. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Yep.
What is your favorite season?
Summer.
Summer. Why?
Because it's nice and warm. I love warm weather. That's why I enjoyed staying in Durban. It was nice and humid.
Okay, we've got 15 more seconds. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Salmon and Evo.
Oh, nice. Healthy. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay, if you could choose a song to play every time you walked into the room for the rest of your life, what song would it be and why?
It was me and my dad's favorite, Jup Jup Ndikokele.
I love that song too. And lastly, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why?
Sorry, please repeat that.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why?
I think a palm tree. It's
Okay.
nice and tall, and you find it in the most beautiful resorts as well. In fact, I have one in my house.
Oh, lovely. Great. Awesome. You passed it wasn't a test, but the game was great. I think it also allowed our viewers to know you a little bit more. My last question for you, and is there are a lot of obviously women and both men watching, but if you had to give career advice to anyone who's watching now, after looking at your profile, what kind of advice would you give someone who is starting off their career? Also, someone who maybe is struggling to find a job or maybe lost their job, what kind of advice would you give them?
So I would say for those that are starting up, it's very important to know yourself and value yourself. So your personal brand, as well as your purpose, what is the why? Because if you know why I'm doing this, you're going to be able to overcome challenges that come your way, and always, the against all odds mantra. And also, remember, when you're looking for a job, you're going to walk into an organization that's got a corporate culture. So if you don't have your own set of values, it may be difficult for you to fit into that culture. So it's important to enhance your own personal brand and values to the corporate culture. I've never had a job in my life. I've always had a career. So that's what you need to tell yourself. And then for those that are seeking opportunities, I find sometimes people also become desperate that now they just want to apply for everything and anything. Focus on what you know. So if you ask me, I'll tell you that my top skills are strategy, marketing, as well as stakeholder management. And when people do a search on LinkedIn, you must also make sure that those keywords that relate to the skill that they're looking for is visible, because that's how recruiters will find you as well. So the danger of working for one company for so many years, 12 years, I never had a CV. I had to pay CV Center to do a CV for me, because when I got called for this job, they said, hey, we need your CV. I didn't have one. So it's important to have a good CV and also your skills as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for the opportunity to engage with you. I think it was very insightful. Shared a lot that I think us as women who want to also break the stereotype actually need. And also just watching your journey, it just tells us that there's a lot of power in being resilient. So thank you so much for showing us that it is possible. And it is possible for you to show up the way you truly are as your authentic self and still be able to lead and be powerful and also have humility. Like I said in the beginning, you're such a well-rounded person, And we're really inspired by your journey. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us today.
No, thank you, Nandi, for having me. And again, it was an honor to meet you. Thank you.
Right. Cheers. Have a good one. Have a
Thank
lovely
you.
Women's Month.